I barely calmed down. We've just watched the Lions announcement and I'm straight into recording a video. Still sort of taking stock of that. So we will obviously discuss that a tiny bit in this video. However, I will be recording one with Rich himself later today. He will be doing an immediate announcement reaction. So check out the rest of the rugby analyst for that. For today, we've got Bristol Bears captain Fitz Harding. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. Calm down.
Yeah, it was God, it was a long wait to hear Genji's name, but no, it's a massive I think relief was the biggest word to be honest, because we always knew there was a good chance to get named. But yeah, no, it's great
Yeah.
for the club.
Was it literally 30 of you around a TV screen as
Yeah,
stuff?
so we had it in our main meeting room. So we had most of the staff were there as well. So we probably had 50 or 60 in the meeting room. Um yeah, just all waiting because we knew it would be after. Well, we knew it'd be pretty soon into the thing. Tyke Furlong was the one that we thought would be after, so everyone was.
That's the thing about watching it is because it's in alphabetical order, you're constantly like cross-referencing who's made it, who hasn't. Like, you go past H and Robbie Henshaw hadn't made it, for example. So I guess it was probably easier, with the Bristol squad, there weren't too many players that the bookies had in genuine contention. So it was a bit easier to follow. I'd imagine a Leinster changing room would have been.
Yeah, no. So,
And how was Ellis?
yeah, I mean, I think relieved again. He was feeling. So I'd spoken to him earlier this week about because we weren't sure whether to put the meeting on because obviously we finished sort of about half one, so most of the lads would have gone home. But um, yeah, I just said to him, I said, it's a big moment for the club, a big moment for the city to have a homegrown
Yeah.
Bristolian. So I said to him if he, um, felt comfortable, it'd be a great moment to share with him. And yeah, thankfully it went the way we wanted to. So yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
moment.
that's an incredible. If it doesn't go that way, and obviously, thank God it did. And to be honest, it should have. Like, he obviously deserves his inclusion. But if it doesn't, you've got a very quiet changing room of 60 people not really knowing what to say. And as captain, you'd probably have to take the reins a little bit. So I bet you're a bit relieved as well.
Yeah, we had I was trying to remember what we did 4 years ago when because at that time we had Sinks and he was the main guy and obviously he wasn't included in the initial squad.
Yeah,
Um, Actually, I don't think we watched it as a squad then, so it wasn't as bad. I think it was one of those we'd come out of a meeting and it was announced, and everyone was trying to work out, who was included, who wasn't, and yeah. But yeah, no, thank God.
my God, yeah, my heart rate is still very high. They certainly made a spectacle of it this year with the crowd and the music in the background, etc., and the pauses between. So they properly like got your heart rate up. Keen to make today about you, so let's not go down a Lions rabbit hole as much as I'd obviously love to. Would love to get to know you a little bit more. I mean, you and I are quite similar by background. It stops at the professional rugby bit, but before then, went to schools in London, went to university at the same time. You were ex Wellington, I'm right in saying.
Yeah, yeah,
I looked at Wellington and then never ended up going. Were you John Okafor's year?
yeah. So my John Okafor, Ben Loader, Josh Basham, yeah, a few other boys, and then obviously Tom Parton and stuff like that
Yeah.
in the year. A lot of yeah, a good team.
You guys must have won absolutely everything.
Yeah, we did. To be honest, when I was at school, like I struggled to get in the team. Really, I ended up having to move to hooker to get in the team.
There is.
Um,
Oh.
I ended up playing hooker for 2 years when I was 17, 18, basically. But yeah, no, we had a very good side. Yeah, we did well.
Is that because you grew upwards late or just Hooker's lower demands and less
And
back
we
row?
had a lot. We had a competitive back row, and I grew very late. So, um, to be honest, by the time I was 17, 18, I'd kind of done a fair amount of my growing. But
Yeah.
I moved to hooker at about 16 because I couldn't compete in the back row physically, basically. So, um, yeah. And then when I moved to uni, I went back to the back row.
Yeah, that makes sense. I remember that I had a very good mate of mine played Quinn's age grade, and John was obviously the second rower at the time. And at the age of 15, he was the size he was, presumably when you played with him in sick form. Just an absolute freak.
Honestly, an absolute freak. Yeah, we had a few boys like that who were just like physically on a completely different level to me. Um, but I think it was good. Like it challenged me in different ways, and I think one of the hard things if you're one of those players who's massive, you don't get challenged in the same way technically.
Yeah.
Um, he had. So yeah, I'm grateful for it in the end, to be honest.
I was going to say that must have helped you in terms of developing your overall skill set rather than being the one guy that gets the ball and just runs through everyone. It means that when you have filled out and you can match the physicality of other players, you have a lot of edge to your game that they haven't necessarily had to develop.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was used to, getting dropped, not being the best player in the team. So I think that then that's kind of helped me as well. Like when I went to university and then when I arrived here and I felt quite comfortable in that sort of underdog place where like I
Yeah.
carry first name on the team sheet and it didn't really bother me and held me in good stead, I think.
Do you still, slightly weird question, do you still see yourself as an underdog in a way?
Yes and no. Like obviously I have no, I have ambitions to play international rugby and things like that. And obviously like that hasn't happened for me so far, but I like my hunger to do that and desire to do that hasn't diminished at all. I think, at Bristol in the role I'm in now, it's slightly different. I probably like I'm leaning on some other skills um
Yeah.
to like I do. But yeah, that element of like just a hunger to improve and to get better and to achieve more, I think never really goes away.
Speaking of the whole sort of getting dropped in and out of teams, you must have been asked this before, but you started in the fourth team at Durham, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What the what the hell happened there?
It's not always weird. I think um I arrived at uni and when I arrived, I was probably about like 85 kilos. I wanted to play in the back row, and
Yeah,
that Bucks league is a physical league for that age. You're playing against men, and I was certainly a boy. And I think um, the head coach up there, who's there when I a guy called Alex Key would always tell you that he never saw me as staying in the 415, and it was kind of just earn my stripes type of thing. But um, yeah, I was actually back up in Durham last weekend for an anniversary
so
dinner. It made me really appreciate those days because I think um, like a lot of lads end up going and playing professional rugby at 18 and aren't ready for it physically anyway. So the privilege to be able to go and represent that university team, to have a great time, to be able to get a degree, and then to be able to go and do professional rugby. And I was playing the Premiership within 6 months of leaving uni. So
yeah, it was great.
um, to be able to do that is like a massive privilege, something I'm really grateful for, even though at the time, like you said, like I certainly wasn't happy to be in the 415 and there were definitely some dark times, but yeah, I look back on it with really fond memories.
I mean, the university I was at, so I was at Cambridge, and at Cambridge, the 415 is hot garbage, which I can only see. Durham is stronger, so presumably the fourth, it might be the people's one still, as the 415 is.
No, no, I think yeah, I felt that 415 team was a step down from the level I was playing with at school,
Sure.
and I think that was the biggest thing. It felt that was why I found it so tough because I felt like I was going backwards in a sense.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, but one step down is still not loads. Like, it's not like you're playing sort of Sunday rugby, with a bunch of people who are fairly new to the sport or whatever and got to university and thought, you know what, why not?
yeah, no, it was certainly better than that. I think there was one occasion where I ended up because I was in the 14 coach was he was the coach for the Durham Counties under 20s.
Yeah.
And so he wrote me in to try and play some of that. And some of that was fairly recreational, I'd say, like the level. I did end up then going on a England Counties under 20s tour to Georgia, which was great fun, and that team had some great players in it. But that was probably the low light in terms of the level. Even though it's a great group of lads, like I did enjoy it a lot, but yeah, the level of rugby probably wasn't super high.
Good for the ego, though, surely.
I'm not sure. I'm not that. I'm not really the sort of player that even at that level was able to run through and do score a million tries. I was,
Yeah.
but yeah. Anyway, it was tough.
Yeah. Small great. I actually think Cambridge doesn't even have a fourth team. So there you go. Durham's depths are obviously a lot better. And in terms of you were a history student, right? So
Yeah.
you got a degree under your belt. Did you get everything you wanted to get out of university in terms of you weren't professionally contracted at the time? I'm obviously right in saying so you weren't necessarily living the lifestyle of a professional rugby player and being super strict with yourself.
I think it was a nice balance because I think the rugby program there is serious enough that I managed to get a lot out of it. Like I improved as a player, like an enormous amount across those 3 years, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, yeah, I arrived at university not believing I was good enough to play pressure rugby, and I'd kind of made peace with that. I remember when I first came in to meet Pat, I sort of said like because at the time, believe I look back at it now and think it's mad, but at the time I wasn't even sure if I wanted to come and play professional rugby because I had a lot of friends, going off into the city and getting normal jobs, and it was going to be a big move for me to, move to Bristol, a place I'd never really been. And I remember I sat down with Pat and basically said that, playing pressure rugby was always my dream growing up. Like it's the only thing I ever wanted to do. And I found it, I found those years really hard when I wasn't in teams and stuff like that because it just felt like I was getting further and further away from that dream. And I think it was very daunting, like then being offered the opportunity to do it because the narrative in my head was that I was never like no matter how hard I would try, I didn't have enough talent to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I think it was I thank it every day that I made the right decision and ended up taking that leap. But that mindset allowed me to get the most out of university, I think. And yeah, I had some great years. That was brilliant.
Yeah. I mean the rise is pretty actually remarkable, especially going from a sort of 85 kilo, fourth team fresher. And it sounds like at the time you almost felt like not that you belonged in the 14, but you know what I mean? You didn't have the confidence to think that you should be out three teams higher than that. And to get where you are now, when do you think was the moment the needle shifted? I don't know whether it was a big summer bulk or something like that that sort of meant you were, really there and you meant business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say to be honest because it like, just all happened so gradually. I think my second by the end of my first year, the last guy I played at the end of my first year was for the first 15. And so
Yeah.
then um when I arrived in my second year, it was a chance for me to step up and really perform in a team. And I think when I'm playing my best rugby is when I'm not necessarily thinking about my own performance, is when I want to do everything to get the team to win. And in
Yeah.
my second year, we after a few like poor seasons, the set on my second year was the first season Durham sort of started progressing in the league and started winning some big games. And with that, I produced some like I think some of my best performances at that level. Um, and I remember sort of at the end of that season, I was selected for England students. And I got approached by a few people sort of talking about the possibility of playing professional rugby. Um, and that was probably the point where I considered like what could be um and like that would be an option for me. But I still don't think I ever was in a position where I felt um super like comfortable and confident that I could do it probably until I've been here really.
Yeah. At a uni like Durham as well, they talk about imposter syndrome quite a lot, not necessarily in terms of rugby, but just in general. How have you ever encountered that sort of feeling, and how have you managed to sort of shake that?
To be honest, I would say that I wouldn't call it imposter syndrome. Like um I think I've always had like a competitive drive in me that is like overcome that in a sense that like even though there's maybe like an underlying monologue in my head about whether or not I can do something, I had well, I have a confidence in my competitiveness, and I know that even if I'm don't have the most talent, I still have the ability to compete in like whatever environment I'm in. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Who was in your Durham cohort? Because I know, I mean, it's not well, it is a total coincidence. The other person we've had on this series is ex-Durham as well, Paul Brown from Exeter.
Yeah.
You maybe overlapped for a year, if that.
No, so I didn't. I left the year Paul joined.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
but but Paul Brown, yeah, was in that sort of era. Ben Stevenson,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Justin Clegg, who's at Worcester.
Yeah.
Uh, who else you have? Obviously, Max Pepper and Guy Pepper were a bit younger than
Yeah.
me,
But
uh,
they're after you.
and stuff like that. So yeah, we had a good group of lads.
Amazing. And just going back to this time, what, 15 months ago when you were made captain, obviously, but going, fasting forward, how did that happen as quickly and in as much of a whirlwind as the whole, going pro narrative happened as well?
It was a weird period, that period, because we were kind of changing the way we approached the game. And I think there was a lot to be thought out technically and tactically about our game. And the number one thing I think we needed was a fresh start
Yeah.
um, into that season. And I think that's the way Pat saw it. And I think, with Stevie getting a bit older as well, that was um, kind of the succession plan, I guess. But like you said, at the same time, it came from completely nowhere, and there were a lot of big leaders in the team as well.
Yeah.
So like a bit daunting, like initially, but the lads are brilliant, and I feel like now I'm in a position where the leadership group we've got is really settled and diverse as well. Like there are lots of different lads who, approach the game differently, and it's exactly what we need to get the success we want.
Yeah. Obviously, I think very rarely would you have someone not accept the captaincy, but what gave you the confidence to go ahead? I mean, you'll know, you've heard a million times, you're the second youngest captain in Premiership history. Do you know who the first is out of interest?
It's Martin Corey.
Yeah, Martin Corey back in '97 or whenever it was. What gave you the confidence to go ahead and accept it? Did Pat sit down with you, or even Stevie sit down with you and sort of,
Yeah, so Pat sat down with me. It was funny actually on the day because it was in pre-season, and Pat came up to the beginning of the day. I was like, "Oh, we need to go and have a chat," and I sort of was like, "All right then," thinking that it didn't sound like a great thing, obviously. Um, And then I went and found him at lunch and said, "Do you want to catch up now?" He was like, "Oh, no, 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 we need a proper chat." And I was like, "Oh God, what's this going to be about?" So anyway, I went and saw it at the end of the day, and yeah, I was shocked when I found out, and I said to him at the time, I said that I needed some time to think about it because it was very very daunting. But the one thing that Pat said was that he'd already spoken to Stevie, and Stevie gave me his full backing, which was massive for me.
yeah,
Giving me the confidence. Like me and uh, Dolph have a really great relationship, and he's been massive for me in my development, especially sort of off the pitch as a leader. And
yeah.
so I think having that, and also knowing the other leaders in the group, and I feel like I have a strong relationship with them, and I had a real trust that they'd have my back, and that was massive for me.
What did you think the chat was about when he says to you? And there's presumably a few hours of sort of overthinking things about
To be honest, at the time, there was something specific about training, and I can't remember what it was, but because it was in pre-season, I knew it wasn't going to be about selection or anything like that. But
yeah.
uh, yeah, I thought it was about something about training, something I'd done wrong, well, something off the pitch, something like that. But yeah, that's
Captaincy
fine.
didn't go through your mind once.
No, there was a point where I thought it might be about stepping up into a leadership role.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't think it was going to be captain. I think, being part, at that point, had been part of leadership groups, but not like the central core of it. So yeah.
In terms of characters, it's a hell of a squad to be captain of as well. I mean, Bristol, you guys are so good at giving your fans and followers a window into what it's like to be in camp. You've obviously got your own podcast that Jake Woolmore runs, and then Max Laheath
Yeah.
is Max Laheath. Actually, most of those guys who are like the ones we see and a bit weird are props. I don't know what it is, but what's it like? Sort of, are they? as they are behind the camera in front of it as well. I phrased that terribly, but you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean they're very authentic is how I'd describe a lot of our squad. And that's something that you can't take for granted. I think I probably sometimes do take it for granted, but like the characters we have in our squad, they're not afraid to tell you how it is or how they think it is. And it's like can be a challenge as a leader to deal with that, but it makes it easy to have everyone on the same page. And when we are on the same page, we know that we can be really dangerous on the pitch, and
Yeah.
all that cohesion is developed, not just on the training pitch, but also like off in the canteen and the change rooms, things like that.
One of my favorite Bears videos that I've ever watched, and I've probably watched it 3 or 4 times, is Leaf in the doing a gym tour of you guys in preseason. It must be 2 seasons. You have long ginger hair back then, and you'd obviously it was before you shaved it all off. And one thing I noticed, his Arnold Schwarzenegger impression is phenomenally good. I don't know if you watched the video.
Oh no, I know the Schwarzenegger impression. It's he's brilliant. Yeah,
He's also a straight freak in that he's probably the only prop who could also be a bodybuilder.
yeah, and do you know what? He's been superb for us on the pitch as well. I think because he's got this off-pitch personality. A lot of the time, his performances on the pitch get overlooked a bit, but he played his 100th game for us this year against Clermont,
Yeah.
and he the bench and was just like some of the things he was doing were absolutely freakish, and I'm not sure he gets enough credit for that sort of thing. But yeah, he's been brilliant for us.
Is he the strongest bear in terms of in the
Uh,
army room?
yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so.
Where do you rank?
Um, I'd say some of the power stuff we do, I'd be fairly good at. Upper body, pure strength probably isn't my strong point.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I mean the thing about Max is that he doesn't really do your generic bench press, back squat type of
Does he
weights anymore.
not? Oh my God.
He's now into his very like functional strength training. So he'll do weird exercises with maces and with ropes, and
Yeah.
um it's worth speaking to him about. But he's kind of he's kind of completed the list. I think he's now focused on what makes him the best on the pitch, and yeah, he's got some odd methods to achieve that.
Well, that makes him even more freaky because I think the video I was watching, he was still pushing 180 fairly comfortably, and
Oh
so
yeah. No,
without doing that regularly, he's still doing that.
yeah, no, doesn't mean he's not doing any of it. It's just
Keeps it
doing
ticking
more.
over.
Yeah.
And look, in terms of you mentioned obviously the England goal, Pat Lam has publicly backed you. I think a lot of people are, really starting to as well. I don't know if you've had any conversations with Steve Borthwick just yet, but whether you have or not, what are your sort of work ons to be able to really start, banging that door down if you're not already?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one with the amount of back rowers who are performing, English back
Yeah.
rowers who are performing at this point. I think my big work on from my perspective are just my dominance and contact probably on both sides of the ball. I think um the way Bristol play sometimes means I've got roles that don't necessarily suit that, but I think actually on the defensive side I can be more effective in the tackle, more effective at the breakdown. And that's like stuff that has probably been my work on for the last 5, 6 years, if I'm being completely honest. And I think I've grown a lot in that area, but I think um, there have been times this season where I probably haven't been as effective and as dominant as I want to be.
Okay.
So that's something that I'm constantly trying to improve. And um, yeah, like you said, the coaches that are here are brilliant for that and in helping me and trying to help me achieve that goal.
How do you improve that? Is that gym work? Is that workout on the training field? Is it a mentality switch that you need to flick? Is it a drive thing, which seems less likely to be honest?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of all those things. I think in season it's really hard to. well, it's slightly easier this half of the season where you've got more breaks, but it's
Yeah.
in season it's really hard to make big strides in the gym just because I'm, especially if I'm playing, 80 minutes most weeks. It's about making sure that I'm recovered and I'm putting my body in the best place I possibly can come the weekend. I think the biggest work on for me has been what's the biggest way I've worked on it has been sort of the technical aspects of it. So I've been working with Jordan Crane a lot on just my jackal technique, reading different pictures, and also like using other methods to affect the speed of ball. Like I think a lot of the time, um, pundits, commentators, whatever, are very focused on jackal turnovers and things like that. But I think, one of the things I try to have is a range of different tools to be effective at the breakdown. So whether or not that's winning turnovers, a big role of a back row is to be able to slow the ball down and make it uncomfortable for the opposition halfbacks. And yeah, so for me, it's just about reading different pictures, and then defensively as well. It's maybe a little bit of a mindset thing, but again, it's just like picking my moments where I'm going for big defensive shots, where I'm basically how I can be the most effective in the defensive line.
Yeah. I mean, the England back row is about as competitive as we've seen it in God knows how long. You have four or five back rowers on the plane to Australia that were just announced. Curry, Pollock, Earl, Chesham, you could count as a back rower as well. The names that weren't in there, the two Willises, Cunningham South, Ben Curry. Do you resent that fact slightly? I mean, it's almost similar to when you were at school and you were playing hooker because the back row is that bloody competitive.
Not at all, to be honest. Like um it is what it is. Like it's I don't give it much thought if I try not to give it much thought because I can't control it. Like
Yeah.
it is what it is, and the only thing that I can do is try and make sure I'm performing at the highest level I possibly can. And playing for England is the ultimate for me. Like it's an absolute dream, but um like again, it's not something I can control. So the number one thing I try and put my energy and put my time into is winning rugby match with Bristol, playing well for Bristol. I'm desperate to win the Premiership with Bristol as well, and um, that's the best way to achieve my international goals is to win the Premiership with Bristol. So yeah, that's what I'm really focused on.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like a really, really good way of thinking about it, to be honest. We're also a couple of days out from a trip to Cardiff for you guys, which is very, very exciting. I mean, it's something we've seen in the past 4 or 5 seasons with Quins and obviously now Saracens. Quins have obviously got their big game, their big summer kickoff. Saracens got the showdown. Big day out is what you guys are calling it. You've rented out the Principality, which is pretty cool. Is that a stadium you've ever played at before?
Really excited. I think I've never played there, never even been there. I've played at the Cardiff Farms Park a couple of times, but yeah, never been there. So yeah, super excited as a group. It's gonna be a great day.
You've heard the rumors of the way the noise sort of reverberates because it's essentially a vertical echo chamber.
Yeah, no, to be honest, we haven't like spoken about it that much as a group because we know like the emotional side of it will take care of itself once we're there, especially with it being Bath. But I think yeah, it'll be a great occasion for not just the squad but the club as a whole and the city. Yeah, it should be a great day.
Yeah. And yeah, I think you've sold 45,000 tickets so far, which is almost double Ashton Gate. I'm sure it'll be up to 50,000 by the end of it. Bristol and Bath first played in 1888. So it goes back a long way. How do you guys, I mean, we know what a modern sort of derby rivalry represents in terms of sort of, the daggers that you sort of send the way of the opposition. How do you guys view that rivalry? And Bath are obviously top of the table at the moment, likely to make the playoffs. You guys are very much fighting to be there with them. How are you seeing the fixture itself first, but also the broader rivalry?
Yeah, I think it's a like you said, like Bath are in a great position. They played some great stuff this year, and I think it'll be a really good challenge for us to go there and get a result. And um, you know, I'm probably not the best person to talk to you about the rivalry because I'm not
Yeah.
Bristolian. What I
So,
can say is that it's a fixture that means a massive amount to this squad. I played in a number of these games now, and it's never lost on you how much it means to play against Bath. And um, you speak to the Bristolians around, and they'll tell you exactly why it means so much, and it's a real privilege to be involved in that. And yeah, we've had some good performances against Bath over the last few years as well. So um, yeah, I'm sure come 3 o'clock on Saturday, the lads will be absolutely firing and ready to go. And the emotion of the group will be at real high.
You've also got the confidence of what happened earlier in the season as well, which presumably you're at least discussing that loosely to show that it doesn't really matter if they're top of the table.
Yeah, we've tapped it into a bit sort of across the season because it was probably one of our best performances of the season. And we've spoken a lot about this week about everyone just being at a 7 out of 10. I think a lot of the time, when people think about Bristol, they think about 10 out of 10 performances from individual players, and
Yeah,
um, you know, spoke about as a group having pride in the unseen things and understanding that it we don't all need to be playing at a 10 out of 10 level and doing freakish things with the ball. I think the key to us flowing and us being in control of these games is lads doing their job, lads, limiting the number of errors we're making and being really clean in what we're doing, which gives us the opportunities then to be, to give our superstars time on the ball and and space to do their thing and
yeah.
play the time Bristol are known for.